In this episode, we talk about the Supreme Court Committee on Manipur. We also give you a quick update about COP28, the annual climate change conference. But first, we talk about Telangana, which goes to the polls tomorrow. Hi, I'm Shashank Bhargava, and you're listening to Three Things, the Indian Express news show. Since it was formed in 2014, Telangana has had the Bharat Rashtriya Samiti in power, with Chief Minister K. Chandrasekhar Rao at the helm. During the last elections, people had overwhelmingly voted the party back to power, resulting in BRS winning a total of 88 seats. But this time, facing anti-incumbency sentiments and a robust campaign by the Congress party, it appears that a similar victory may not be possible for the party. We now speak to Indian Express's Sreenivas Janyala, who reports on the state for the paper, about the factors that will determine the results this time. So Srinivas, begin by telling us how BRS's last term fared in the state. What have been some of its biggest highlights?
BRS has, in the last term, launched numerous welfare schemes which have benefited various sections of the society and socially and economically backward people. Large populations of socially and economically backward people benefited from these welfare schemes. Raitu Bandhu for farmers is, of course, this flagship scheme. Dalit Bandhu for Dalits. Schemes like Kalyan Lakshmi, which gives rupees 1 lakh to a woman's family at the time of marriage, really helps them to bear the cost of the marriage and all. These schemes helped a number of people. I think that is the biggest highlight of the BRS term from 2018 and before that also. Apart from that, BRS has provided a very stable government for the 9 years. There has been no law and order problems. And we have generally seen growth and development of the new state.
Right, and the Raitu Bandhu scheme was started by the party in 2018, and it has claimed to benefit about 60 lakh farmers in the state. Could you talk about how this scheme has been received in Telangana and what its impact has been?
See, farmers anywhere across the country, farmers need some financial support ahead of the sowing season to purchase seeds, fertilizers, etc. and to prepare the field for the sowing season. And Raitu Bandhu, which is farm investment support basically, has helped these farmers by putting cash of about 5,000 or 6,000 per season, sowing season, directly in their bank accounts, which they would use to purchase whatever they need. So small and marginal farmers, it helped them a lot. But over the years, like after it was launched in 2018, like by 2021-22, there was some resentment among small and marginal farmers because they own very less land, 3 to 4 acres max or less than that. So they would get only 30,000-40,000 per year, while they watch their neighbors who have more than 5 acres, 10 acres land, they get more money through Raitu Bandhu. So over the last couple of years, the perception is that big farmers are rich anyway because they have so much land, and Raitu Bandhu is making them even more richer, while the small farmers' financial conditions remain the same. While it has provided immense benefits to the farmers, this little resentment has crept in recently.
And recently we saw the Election Commission halt the scheme in light of the Model Code of Conduct. Could you talk about the reasons it gave for it?
See, in 2018, the Election Commission briefly halted, saying that Model Code of Conduct is in place, so you have to halt this. Later on, it gave them permission that since you have already started, you can finish off whatever was going on. Using that, the BRS was trying to or wanted to start dissemination of funds through Raitu Bandhu again. But now Congress has complained to the EC, and EC has asked them that what we said in 2018 does not apply now. Please stop anything about it. And it has also warned any minister of talking about that in the next couple of days, Raitu Bandhu amount would be credited in the accounts of farmers.
Right, and farmers constitute about 40% of the voter base in the state, and they had overwhelmingly supported the BRS when it had first come to power. But now let's talk about the main opposition in the state, which is the Congress party. Back in 2018, it had won a total of 19 seats, and BRS, of course, had won 88. But now it has been extensively campaigning in the state. What are the things that the party has been focusing on?
Congress, as it had announced, is focusing on the 6 guarantees that they are talking about aggressively. These 6 guarantees they have announced at various public meetings. Now, the party is aggressively disseminating these guarantees like they did in Karnataka, not only through public meetings, but also through effective use of social media. They have basically, put it in a point form, what are these 6 guarantees and how it will benefit each, whatever it is directed at, like the monthly allowance of 2,500 to women, all women. So a photo of woman and, happy smiling faces and 2,500 rupees in big letters. This is how they are managing their campaign and focusing mainly on that, mainly on, what are these 6 guarantees and how they will be implemented and when they will be implemented. Like they're saying that, like leaders like Telangana Pradesh Congress Committee, President Revanth Reddy, at all public meetings, he says that this month, like November, you will receive only 2,000 senior citizen pension from BRS government, but next month when we will be in power, you will receive 4,000 rupees. That is the kind of, campaign, and they are aggressively focusing on what they will give to the people once they are in power.
And this year we saw Congress winning in Karnataka. Did that give the boost to the Congress leadership in Telangana?
Yeah, it was like a shot in the arm to the Telangana Congress. Until then, the BJP was breathing down the neck of the BRS. But once BJP lost in Karnataka, it was like a big boost to Congress. And Congress like rejuvenated and, re-energized, and they've started campaigning very aggressively after Karnataka win. And we are also seeing all Karnataka leaders, more than 20 MLAs, party leaders, Karnataka Congress leaders are, including their Chief Minister Siddaramaiah, is campaigning here in Telangana. So yeah, Karnataka win is like a shot in the arm for the Congress in Telangana.
And Srinivas, the Congress party also hopes to regain the minority vote from the BRS and the AIMIM. How is the party strategizing to achieve that?
See, there are some of the 119 assembly seats in Telangana, about 40 of them have significant Muslim voter base. And in 2014 and 2018, when MIM President Asaduddin Owaisi declared his support to BRS, a majority of the Muslims voted for BRS only. But it seems there is some disillusionment among them about what BRS has done or what AIMM as a Muslim party has done for minority communities in Telangana. Now, the Congress has seized upon this and it has declared a minority declaration, which says that we will, as soon as the Congress forms a government, there will be a separate budget for minorities, quota in jobs and education, and separate pensions for minorities. Minorities, they are also including Sikhs, Christians, and Jains among them. And there are a host of other secondary benefits that have been declared in the minorities declaration. And with that, they are approaching all the Muslim communities across the state. And this time, most probably, the minority vote may be split between BRS and Congress for the first time after 2014.
Yeah, and AIMIM currently holds 7 seats. And these are seats which the party has held since 2009. So is there a chance that it might end up losing some of them this time?
MIM changed their Nampally candidate, thinking that Congress may make some impact this time. So out of these 7 seats, I can only think of Nampally that may result in a very tough fight between MIM and Congress. All other seats, I think they will win.
And you spoke about the BJP earlier. Now, PM Modi has participated in a number of rallies in the state, and while doing so, has focused on the backward classes in the state. Talk about why the party has chosen to focus on this and the promises it has made in that regard.
I think the BJP has picked up a very strong point, in this election. BCs account for about 52% of Telangana population. And their vote is mostly divided. There are 134 BC castes or communities in the state, and community leaders have been asking for a caste survey to ascertain their numbers so that they can seek quota reservation accordingly based on their numbers. Now, the BJP is very strongly, effectively reaching out to them with this promise that they will conduct the caste survey, and also they have announced that a candidate from the BC community would be made the CM. I think this time maybe in all the elections we have seen that BCs vote differently. They vote differently in every district. They vote to whichever party they want to. They don't vote en masse to any particular party. So this time maybe, I don't know whether this BJP promise of a caste survey and making backward class person a CM, whether it will accrue any benefits to the BJP or not, but it is definitely a very strong point that the BJP is reaching out with.
And this is so unlike what the BJP is doing in other states, right? Because in other states, it's the Congress and the other opposition parties that have been demanding a caste survey.
Yeah, this is different. This is basically because BCs account for more than 52% of the population in Telangana, and that is why I think the BJP has changed its strategy for Telangana because of the large percentage of BCs in this state. And to ensure that at least some percentage of that population supports the BJP, I think that is why they have announced a BC candidate as a CM also, that they will make a BC person as a CM.
Okay, now let's talk about the other state party, which is the TDP, the Telugu Desam party. In the last elections, it had only won 2 seats. And this time, it has chosen to opt out of the race altogether. Has that changed the electoral landscape in any significant way?
See, many people say that since Chandrababu Naidu was in jail and that is why he could not prepare much in Telangana. But what I see is last December, he did make some effort to kind of revive the Telangana TDP in Khammam district where TDP has some support base. But he didn't pursue it. I don't think that TDP really intended or strongly felt that it should contest in Telangana, knowing very well that there is already BRS is very powerful here. Congress is also contesting. BJP is also contesting. And what has happened is in 2014, TDP had a good vote share here in Telangana, especially in the places where people of Andhra Pradesh origin have settled, like in and around Hyderabad, Khammam, Nalgonda and other places. But this support base mostly shifted to BRS, or at places like Khammam and all, it shifted entirely to the BRS. So I don't think TDP not contesting or contesting would have made any impact here in Telangana.
And now finally, Srinivas, considering everything we have spoken about, what would you say will be the biggest challenges for the BRS in these elections?
They are about to complete their second term, and usually anti-incumbency seeps in every state after 2 terms. So there are places or constituencies, you can say, where people are not happy with their local sitting BRS MLAs. That is main. Anti-incumbency is one of the biggest challenge for BRS. Then another main challenge is countering this very strong Congress campaign, because BRS is already implementing many of the schemes that the Congress promises to implement. Congress is only saying that, okay, we will give you a bit more than what BRS is giving. But that campaign is very, very strong. Those 6 guarantees and the manifesto they are talking about is, we will give you more of everything that you are getting already. So countering that campaign, BRS is managing it. They are saying that Congress is only promising. We are already implementing those, like Chief Minister K. Chandrasekhar Rao everywhere says that what they are saying, we are already giving it to you. So if you want those to continue, BRS has to come back. And BJP and Congress are also accusing the BRS of, failing to provide government jobs, corruption, some projects and all. So that negative campaign also they will have to checkmate. Yeah, these are the main challenges for the BRS party, and mainly anti-incumbency and the Congress campaign that they will provide more of everything that the BRS is already giving, and allegations of corruption. These are the biggest challenges for the BRS at the moment.
And next we talk about Manipur, which has been witnessing ethnic violence between its 2 key communities for nearly 7 months now. Now, considering this, sometime back the Supreme Court had appointed a 3-member committee to examine the humanitarian aspects of the ethnic violence in Manipur. And this committee submitted its latest interim reports last Monday, where it raised several concerns regarding what has been going on in the state. To tell us about these concerns and this committee, we are now joined by Indian Express's Apurva Vishwanath. Apurva, when was this 3-member committee first appointed by the Supreme Court?
So in August, the Supreme Court appointed the Justice Geeta Mittal Committee. The committee also comprises of Justice Shalini P. Joshi and Justice Asha Menon, and all 3 of them have a combined experience in areas related to humanitarian efforts and rights of women. So after the brutal sexual assault and gang rape incident in Manipur came to light, the Supreme Court set up this committee to look into the humanitarian aspects of the ethnic violence.
Yeah, and we understand that last Monday, this committee submitted its latest interim reports. Could you talk about the concerns it has raised in them?
So the 13th and 14th reports that were submitted last week, which on Tuesday the Supreme Court took note of, talk about disposing of the dead bodies that are still lying in mortuaries in Manipur. And also the 14th report specifically talks about ex gratia payments. In one report, of course, the committee notes that there are unclaimed dead bodies. And in some instances, the family, which is the next of kin of the deceased, have not come forward to claim those dead bodies. In the 14th report, for example, the committee notes that there are about 38 families who've expressed reservations for taking the ex gratia payment from the government. The Manipur government had announced a 10 lakh compensation for those who died in the violence. But for both these issues, the committee underlines that there is a crucial role that civil society organizations are playing in the state. And here, borrowing from the government, the committee is telling the Supreme Court that these organizations are undermining the efforts of the government in arranging for compensation and disposing the dead bodies.
So basically saying that the civil society groups in Manipur are pressurizing people not to accept compensation and not to accept the dead bodies of their relatives.
Yes, in that sense, they're obstructing the work that the government is doing. So the committee is looking towards the court to intervene and issue some sort of directions to ensure that the dead bodies are disposed and compensation is quickly provided to all the families involved. Because once that happens, the committee's mandate would also come to an end.
And Apurva, after the mandate of this committee gets over, is the Supreme Court expected to intervene and take certain decisions regarding Manipur?
So the Supreme Court had said that it will only be involved with ensuring that the state government is doing its job, which is basically rehabilitation and issues like providing compensation and things like that. So for that day-to-day efforts, the committee was supervising and apprising the court of what the state government is up to. In the past, of course, the committee has looked at a number of issues where complaints of destruction of religious places, the loot of arms, all these issues the committee has submitted reports to the court, but the court has not passed any substantive directions as such. So next week, when the Supreme Court takes up this issue again, the court will have to sort of intervene and, pass some directions to ensure that compensation is provided, or tell the state government to make more efforts to identify these dead bodies and to provide proper burial for those who've died in the violence.
Now, the violence between the Kuki-Zomi community and the Meiteis in Manipur first began on the 3rd of May. Since then, the state has witnessed the deaths of more than 170 people, the displacement of thousands, and a complete breakdown of law and order. To talk about what the situation in Manipur is right now, we speak to Indian Express's Sukrita Baruah. Sukrita, first tell us, what do we know about how many people have died because of the ongoing conflict in the state?
So the last time that officially any statement was made about the death count, and it's been, I think, more than a month since this last number was shared, was 175 people since May 3rd. But it is definitely higher because since then there have been incidents of people being killed. So, even now till date, as we approach 7 months since the conflict started, every 3 days, every 4 days, we are reporting about either incidents of abduction or killings still happening. That kind of mass killing which had happened in the early stages of the violence is not happening. That's true. But there are regular instances of killing still happening. So I would say that it is more around 200, the death count so far.
And do we know how different things are at the moment compared to what was happening back in May and in June?
So everything that has been happening since then revolves around the kind of rigid partition that has been created in the state, right, between areas dominated by the Meitei community, where they are in majority, and in the districts where the Kuki-Zomi community are in majority. That came into place right at the beginning of May when the conflict began, and it is as rigid as ever till date. And that is not something that has softened, that is not something that has given way at all. So these many months down the line, that is the most crucial part, right? And that is the most crucial part. You have a state which is just fundamentally divided. It's divided geographically. It's divided societally. Like even, something that we had reported about all the way back in May, which is that police personnel, government employees, people who are working in areas where the other community were in majority. So say Kuki government employees working in Imphal or vice versa. Say Mete personnel working in, say, maybe Churachandpur. There's been a complete social segregation which took place. So people have moved to the areas where their community were in majority, and that is still in place. So that fundamental alteration in the character of the state that we saw on May 3rd persists, and as a result of that, the normal functioning is very, very far away from Manipur. So like recently I had done a report about how the medical students, these are medical students who have not had access to their own institutes for the last 7 months. So how even writing exams for them is a challenge. Displaced students have not written their medical exams. So that fundamental divide and the fallout of it is as strong as it was in May today.
And Sukrita, one major thing that was going on was that both sides were looting state arms and ammunition. Is that still happening?
So the looting of armories has, by and large, most of it took place in the early stages. So right when the conflict began, there was a large-scale looting of state armories. And then again, when, things had started quietening down a little bit, and then around May 28, May 29, there was a huge spike in the violence. And during that time, there was a massive looting of armories. And it's repeatedly reported that more than 6,000 arms have been looted, and just about a quarter has been recovered. So while the biggest looting of armories took place during that period, there have been, so when there's a flare up, when there's an escalation in tensions, one of the key things that people, particularly in the valley, seem to do is try and get their hands on more weapons from the armories. So we saw that even earlier this month, after a Mete police officer was killed in Moreh and there was an escalation of violence, then once again in Imphal, there was the looting of arms.
Also, several Kuki leaders had in the past talked about forming their own government, basically saying that they cannot be under a government that is Mete dominated. Does that demand still persist?
Yeah, it's stronger than ever, and that is a crucial demand by the leaders of that community around which so many of the issues revolve, right? So when we talk about bodies of people from the Kuki-Zomi community not being claimed, one of the reasons is to push for this demand for separate administration. So that demand is very strong till date. In fact, recently there was a huge controversy when one of the leaders of this Kuki-Zomi organization called the Indigenous Tribal Leaders Forum in Churachandpur, he had made a statement saying that, we give the government an ultimatum, and if in a couple of weeks they don't concede to our demand of separate administration, we're going to set up a self-government. We're going to do self-rule. So there was a huge controversy and there was an FIR slapped against him because of this. So these fundamental issues, right, the divide and that the demand for separate administration are still going strong.
And in the end, we talk about COP28. For the first time in 3 years, Prime Minister Narendra Modi will attend the annual climate change conference, which is being held in Dubai tomorrow. The 28th edition of the Conference of Parties to the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, or COP, will run till the 12th of December. The main agenda is to complete a stock-taking exercise to review the progress in the global fight against climate change and to decide on measures to strengthen climate actions being taken by countries. Modi will be in Dubai for the first 2 days of the conference and will also hold bilateral meetings with some of the other leaders participating in the event. Being the third largest contributor of greenhouse gases globally, India plays a vital role in the worldwide effort to combat climate change. Corresponding to its growing impact on the international economic and geopolitical stage, India has taken a more proactive role in recent years during the COP events. According to the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, global greenhouse gas emissions need to be cut by at least 43% from the 2019 levels by 2030 to retain any realistic chances of keeping the rise in global temperatures within 1.5 degrees Celsius from pre-industrial averages. That means that global emissions would have to come down to about 32 billion tons by 2030, which according to many experts appears impossible. And this is due to the fact that emissions only seem to be rising over the years. You were listening to 3 Things by the Indian Express. Today's show was written and produced by me, Shashank Bhargava, and was edited and mixed by Suresh Pawar. If you like the show, then do subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. You can also recommend the show to someone you think will like it, share it with a friend or someone in your family. It's the best way for people to get to know about us. You can tweet us at Express Podcasts and write to us at podcast@indianexpress.com.